My name is Amber. I'm 27, and last spring, my brother Tyler destroyed my entire graduate thesis with one violent slam of my laptop. 18 months of research, coding, and writing, gone in seconds. When I ran to my parents for help, my mom laughed. "Oh, sweetie, you're too sensitive." My dad actually chuckled and said, maybe she wasn't meant to graduate. They thought that was the end of my academic career. They had no idea what I would do next. Before I tell you how I turned this disaster into the greatest triumph of my life, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories about family betrayal and sweet, sweet karma. I grew up in a middle-class suburban neighborhood in Michigan, in a house where academic achievement was acknowledged but never truly celebrated. From an early age, I showed an aptitude for mathematics and computer science, spending hours solving problems while my younger brother Tyler preferred sports and socializing. I was the first in my family to attend college, earning a scholarship to the University of Michigan for my undergraduate degree in computer science. My parents, Linda and Robert, attended my high school graduation, but spent most of the ceremony talking about Tyler's upcoming football championship. When I graduated with honors from college, they came for the ceremony, but left immediately after to make it to Tyler's fraternity party. It was a pattern I had grown accustomed to. My achievements were footnotes in the ongoing saga of Tyler's life. Tyler, for years younger than me at 23, had always been the golden child. With his athletic build, charismatic personality, and easy confidence, he drew attention effortlessly. He had dropped out of community college after one semester, claiming it wasn't his thing, and now worked irregularly at our uncle's construction company, spending most of his earnings on parties and his truck. My master's program in advanced computational algorithms was challenging but fulfilling. I had been working on my thesis for 18 months, developing an innovative algorithm for predictive analysis in healthcare data that could potentially help identify early markers for certain diseases. My thesis advisor, Professor Diana Martinez, believed in my potential in a way my family never had. "This work could make a real difference, Amber," she had told me countless times. "Your brother scored the winning touchdown," my mother would announce during our weekly calls, barely asking about my studies. "How's the computer stuff?" my father would add as an afterthought. I had tried explaining the significance of my research, but their eyes would glaze over. When I mentioned being considered for a prestigious tech fellowship, my mother changed the subject to Tyler's new girlfriend. When I won a departmental award for my research proposal, my father asked if it came with any prize money, then seemed disappointed when I said it was just academic recognition. I had a comprehensive backup system for my thesis work, external hard drives and cloud storage that I updated weekly. But 3 weeks before my deadline, my cloud storage subscription had expired, and in the chaos of final revisions, I hadn't renewed it immediately. My most recent external backup was from 2 weeks prior, missing crucial final changes and optimizations to my algorithm. As my thesis deadline approached, the tension at home grew palpable. I had returned to my parents' house for spring break, planning to use the quiet family environment to focus on final revisions. I needed just one more week of intensive work before submitting. "Can't you work at the library?" my mother had suggested when I explained I needed quiet time at home. "Tyler's having some friends over this weekend. I have all my notes and set up here," I had explained. "I just need everyone to respect that I'm on a deadline." My father had nodded absently, but I could tell he didn't understand the gravity of my situation. To them, my thesis was just homework, not the culmination of years of research and the gateway to my future career. Professor Diana had been checking in daily, excited about my progress. "Your approach to the algorithm optimization is genuinely innovative, Amber," she had written in her last email. "I can't wait to see the final version. This could open doors for you in both academic and industry circles." Her belief in me was a lifeline, the validation I never received at home. With her encouragement, I had applied for positions at top tech companies and research institutions, opportunities that hinged on the successful completion of my thesis. The morning before the incident, I had received an email from TechInnovate, a leading research firm, expressing interest in my work based on Professor Diana's recommendation. "We would love to review your completed thesis once it's defended," they wrote. "There may be a position opening that aligns with your research focus." It was the opportunity one had been working toward, a chance to make a real impact with my work and finally prove to my family that my computer stuff mattered. With renewed determination, I had thrown myself into the final revisions, knowing that one more week of focused work would change the trajectory of my career. What I didn't know was that Tyler had other plans for my laptop and my future. The day that would change everything started like any other during that spring break week. I woke up early, made a large cup of coffee, and settled into the small desk in my childhood bedroom. The walls still had faded posters from my high school days, mathematical formulas and computer science conference flyers rather than the band posters that decorated most teenage rooms. My workspace was meticulously organized, laptop centered on the desk, notebooks arranged by subject matter, sticky notes color-coded by priority. I had created a productive bubble in the midst of my parents' chaotic household. By 8 a.m., I was deep into refining a particularly complex section of my algorithm, the kind of work that required uninterrupted focus and precision. Around noon, I heard the front door slam and Tyler's booming voice echoed through the house. I hadn't expected him until evening. My parents had mentioned he was working that day. I tried to maintain my concentration, inserting my earbuds and turning up the volume on my study playlist. 20 minutes later, my door burst open. Tyler stood there, grinning, with two friends I recognized from his high school days, Jake and Brandon. They all held beer cans despite it being barely afternoon. "Hey, nerd. We're setting up for a party tonight," Tyler announced, not bothering to knock or acknowledge that I was clearly working. I removed my earbuds slowly. "I thought you were working today." "Mom and Dad said the house would be quiet." Tyler laughed. "Plans changed. Boss gave us the day off. Besides, it's spring break. No one should be doing homework." "This isn't homework, Tyler. It's my master's thesis, and I have a deadline next week." I tried to keep my voice calm, reasonable. Brandon, leaning against my doorframe, smirked. "Sounds boring as hell." "We need to use the Bluetooth speaker," Tyler said, ignoring my explanation and scanning my room. "I think Dad put it in here." "I haven't seen it," I replied, already feeling the tension headache building behind my eyes. "Can you guys please close the door? I really need to focus." Tyler rolled his eyes dramatically for his friend's benefit. "Jesus, Amber, lighten up. It's not like your computer project is saving lives or anything." The irony of his statement, given that my algorithm was specifically designed to improve early disease detection, wasn't lost on me, but I knew explaining would be pointless. "Look, just keep the noise down, okay? I'll be done in a few hours and then I'll get out of your way." Tyler shrugged noncommittally as they finally left my room. I closed the door, took a deep breath, and tried to refocus on my work. But concentration was difficult as more of Tyler's friends arrived. Music began blasting from downstairs, and the house filled with laughter and shouting. By 3 o'clock, the noise had become unbearable. I saved my work, put my laptop to sleep, and went downstairs to get some water and ask again for them to lower the volume. The kitchen was a mess of pizza boxes, beer cans, and chip bags. Tyler and about 8 friends were gathered around the living room TV, playing video games at maximum volume. "Tyler, can you please turn it down just a little?" I asked, raising my voice to be heard over the chaos. He barely glanced at me. "Can't hear the game if we turn it down." "I can't hear myself think upstairs," I countered. "I just need a few more hours of quiet work time." Jake, sprawled across the couch, snickered. "Dude, your sister is such a buzzkill." Tyler's expression darkened. "This is my house too, you know. Why don't you go to the library or something if you need it so quiet? Because all my notes and setup are here. And I've been planning to work here all week, I explained for what felt like the 100th time. Mom and Dad said it would be quiet during the day. Well, Mom and Dad aren't here. Tyler shot back. And we're having fun. The world doesn't revolve around your stupid thesis. I felt my patience wearing thin. It's not stupid. It's my future. Just because you dropped out after one semester doesn't mean education isn't important. The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Tyler's face flushed with anger. And his friends exchanged uncomfortable glances. At least I have friends and a life, he spat. What's the point of all your precious education if you're just a boring nobody that no one wants to hang out with? The words stung more than I wanted to admit. Rather than escalate the situation further, I filled my water glass and retreated upstairs, closing my door firmly behind me. My hands were shaking as I sat back down at my desk. The music volume increased noticeably after our confrontation, Tyler's petty form of retaliation. I put my earbuds back in, tried to block out the world, and reopened my laptop. The algorithm section I had been working on required absolute precision. One misplaced variable could throw off the entire predictive model. I forced myself to focus despite the bass vibrating through the floorboards. Around 5 o'clock, I heard my parents' car in the driveway. Relief washed over me. Surely they would restore some order. I continued working, expecting the music to quiet down once my parents entered. Instead, I heard my mother's delighted laugh. Well, isn't this a nice surprise? I didn't know you were having friends over, Tyler. I waited for my father to say something about the noise or the mess, but instead heard him greeting Tyler's friends by name, asking about sports and joking easily with them. The music remained at full volume. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I saved my work again and went downstairs, finding my parents in the kitchen unpacking groceries while Tyler and his friends continued their game tournament. Mom, Dad, I really need some quiet to work on my thesis, I said, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. The deadline is next week, and I have crucial revisions to finish. My mother glanced up, her expression shifting to mild annoyance. Amber, it's spring break. Tyler has his friends over. Can't you just work around it? I've been trying to all day, I explained. But it's really loud. And I need to concentrate. My father sighed. Maybe you should have stayed at school if you needed to work so badly. This is family time. I came home because you both said it would be quiet here. I reminded them, frustration building. I specifically asked before spring break if this would be a good environment to work, and you said yes. My mother began putting groceries away. Her back to me. Well, we didn't know Tyler would have a little get-together. It's good to see him socializing with his friends. A little get-together? I repeated incredulously. There are like 10 people here, the music is shaking the walls, and I have a career-changing deadline approaching. Don't be so dramatic, my father said dismissively. It's just schoolwork. Life goes on whether you finish your paper on time or not. The casual dismissal of my work that had consumed nearly 2 years of my life, felt like a physical blow. I stood in the kitchen, watching my parents casually prepare dinner for Tyler's impromptu party, and realized with painful clarity where I stood in the family hierarchy. Without another word, I turned and went back upstairs, closing my door on the noise and indifference below. I had 6 more days to finish my thesis revisions. I just needed to get through tonight. And tomorrow I would find somewhere else to work, somewhere my achievements weren't treated as inconveniences. I had no idea that tomorrow would be too late. I had been working for another hour, desperately trying to tune out the increasing noise from downstairs, when my bedroom door crashed open without warning. Tyler stood in the doorway. His face flushed from drinking, flanked by Jake and Brandon. The smell of beer wafted into my carefully maintained workspace. Still at it, huh? Tyler slurred slightly, leaning against the doorframe. You know what your problem is, Amber? You don't know how to have fun. I saved my document reflexively, a habit born from years of careful work. I have fun, Tyler. Just not when I'm on deadline. Jake snickered. Computer nerd's idea of fun is probably just more computers. I ignored him, turning back to my screen. I need to finish this section tonight. Can you guys please just leave me alone for a few more hours? Tyler pushed himself off the doorframe and stumbled further into my room. His movements were loose, unpredictable. No, I don't think I will leave you alone. I'm tired of everyone in this house walking on eggshells because precious Amber needs silence for her super important thesis. The way he said super important dripped with mockery. I felt a familiar knot of tension forming in my stomach. Tyler, I'm not asking for much. Just some basic respect for my work. Respect? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want respect for sitting alone in your room typing all day? What about respect for me? This is my house too. Brandon moved to my bookshelf, carelessly picking up and examining the academic awards I'd accumulated over the years. Damn, you really are a nerd. Please don't touch those, I said. My anxiety rising as he handled the glass plaque from my undergraduate honors symposium. Or what? Brandon challenged, making no move to put it down. Tyler was now standing directly behind my chair, too close, looming over me. I could feel his breath on my neck. You know what, Amber? I think you need to take a break. Come downstairs. Have a beer. Act like a normal person for once. I'll come down when I finish the section, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I promise. Just give me an hour. An hour, a day. A week. It's always something with you. Tyler's voice hardened. Mom and Dad think you're so special with your fancy degree and your thesis. Why can't you be more like your sister? She's going places. I'm sick of hearing it. I turned in my chair, genuinely surprised. What are you talking about? They barely acknowledge my work. They've been talking about your football games and social life since we were kids. Tyler's face twisted with something between rage and hurt. That's such bullshit. They're always bragging about you to their friends. Our daughter the genius. She's getting her master's degree. Meanwhile, I'm just the disappointment who couldn't hack it in college. Before I could process this completely unexpected perspective, Tyler's gaze fixed on my laptop screen, where complex code and mathematical formulas filled the display. This is it, huh? The precious thesis. Tyler's voice took on a dangerous edge. This stupid computer program is more important than family? It's not just a program, I started to explain. It's an algorithm that could help detect early signs of... I never finished the sentence. In one fluid, alcohol-fueled motion, Tyler grabbed my laptop off the desk. The power cord ripped from the wall, papers scattered to the floor. Tyler, I screamed, lunging for my computer. What are you doing? He held it above his head, out of my reach. Let's see how important this really is. Tyler, please, I begged, panic rising in my throat. Everything is on there. My entire future. His face twisted into a cruel grin. Your thesis? Who cares? And then, with deliberate force, he slammed my laptop onto the hardwood floor. The sickening crack of breaking electronics filled the room. But he wasn't done. Tyler brought his foot down on the screen, which shattered under his weight. I dropped to my knees, a wail escaping my throat as I gathered the broken pieces. The screen was completely destroyed. The case cracked open, exposing the damaged components inside. 18 months of work, countless hours of coding and research, potentially lost in seconds of senseless violence. Oh my God. I whispered, tears blurring my vision. Why would you do this? Jake and Brandon stood frozen, their amusement fading as they realized the magnitude of what had just happened. Dude, Brandon muttered. That was kind of messed up. Tyler's momentary satisfaction seemed to waver, but he quickly rallied. It's just a computer. She can get another one. I clutched the broken laptop to my chest and ran past them, down the stairs, desperate to find my parents. They would have to see how wrong this was. They would have to help me. I found them in the kitchen, my mother arranging snacks on a platter while my father mixed drinks. Mom, Dad, I gasped, struggling to speak through my tears. Tyler just destroyed my laptop. All my thesis work was on there. He broke it on purpose. I held up the mangled device, screen hanging by wires, keys scattered. My mother's response was a tired sigh. Oh, sweetie. You're too sensitive. I'm sure he didn't mean to break it that badly. I stared at her in disbelief. He smashed it on the floor and stomped on it. On purpose. A week before my thesis is due. My father glanced at the destroyed laptop, then reached for another bottle of mixer. These things happen. Maybe you should have backed it up. I do back it up, I said, my voice rising with incredulity. But my most recent changes weren't saved to the cloud yet. I could lose weeks of work. Tyler appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Jake and Brandon hanging back awkwardly behind him. It was an accident, he lied smoothly. She's making it sound worse than it was. You said, who cares about your thesis, and then smashed it. I cried, looking desperately between my parents for any sign of support. My father chuckled and shook his head. Well, maybe she wasn't meant to graduate. Not everyone needs all these fancy degrees. The casual cruelty of his words struck me like a physical blow. My mother laughed along with him, arranging cheese on the platter as if nothing important had happened. We'll help you get a new computer after spring break, she offered, as if that solved everything. For now. Why don't you join the party? It might do you good to relax a little. I stood in the kitchen, holding the shattered remains of my academic career, surrounded by family who couldn't, or wouldn't, understand what had just happened. Tyler smirked at me over our mother's shoulder, secure in the knowledge that there would be no consequences for his actions. Behind him, his friends shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps the only people in the house who recognized the severity of what had occurred. Without another word, I turned and fled upstairs, locking myself in the bathroom, the only room in the house with a lock. I slid down against the door, still clutching my broken laptop, and finally allowed myself to break down completely. Through the bathroom door, I could hear laughter resuming downstairs. The party continued as if nothing had happened. As if my future hadn't just been casually destroyed by the brother who was supposed to care about me and the parents who were supposed to protect me. In that moment, something broke inside me that was far more significant than the laptop in my hands. It was the last fragile strand of hope that my family would ever value me or my achievements. And in its place, something new began to form, a cold, clear determination that would change everything. I don't know how long I sat on the bathroom floor, my broken laptop clutched to my chest like a wounded pet. The party continued downstairs, music thumping, laughter echoing, glasses clinking, a surreal soundtrack to my personal catastrophe. My mind kept replaying Tyler's face as he smashed my computer. The sound of the screen cracking, my father's dismissive chuckle. When my breathing finally steadied, I wiped my tears and assessed my situation with clinical detachment. The laptop was definitely destroyed, the screen shattered beyond repair, the case cracked, internal components exposed and damaged. But the hard drive might be salvageable. My most recent cloud backup was from 2 weeks ago, missing crucial algorithm optimizations and the entire conclusion section I'd been refining. I needed help, and clearly, it wouldn't come from my family. With trembling hands, I pulled my phone from my pocket and called the only local friend I had, Rachel, a former undergraduate classmate who now worked at a tech startup in town. We weren't especially close, but she was the only person within 100 miles who might understand the gravity of my situation. Rachel, my voice cracked as she answered. I'm sorry to call out of nowhere like this, but I'm having an emergency. I explained what had happened, each word painful to speak aloud. Your brother did what? Rachel's incredulity was somehow validating, the first acknowledgement that what had happened wasn't normal or acceptable. And your parents laughed. They think I'm overreacting, I said. The injustice of it catching in my throat. That's insane, Amber. Of course you're not overreacting. Rachel's voice was firm, indignant on my behalf. Look, my roommate is out of town. You can crash on our couch if you need to get out of there. Relief washed over me. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. Absolutely sure. Pack what you need and text me when you're on your way. After hanging up, I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. My eyes were red and puffy, my face blotchy from crying. But beneath the devastation, I saw something hardening in my expression, resolve forming like a crystal in solution. I unlocked the bathroom door and listened. The party was still in full swing downstairs. I slipped into my bedroom, avoiding the broken laptop pieces still scattered across the floor, and pulled out my duffel bag. I packed methodically, clothes, toiletries, my external hard drive, notebook, chargers, and the stack of research papers I'd printed as references. As I zipped the bag closed, I heard footsteps in the hallway and froze, but they passed by, accompanied by drunken laughter. I was invisible in my own crisis, and for once, that worked to my advantage. Before leaving, I carefully gathered the pieces of my laptop, placing them in a plastic bag. The IT department might be able to salvage something from the wreckage. I took one last look around my childhood bedroom, the awards on the shelves, the academic certificates on the walls. Physical proof of achievements that had never been enough for my family, and felt a strange detachment, as if I were already gone. I crept downstairs, keeping to the periphery of the house to avoid the living room where the party was centered. As I passed the kitchen, I overheard my mother's voice. Tyler feels terrible. But Amber's always been so dramatic about her schoolwork. Remember how she cried when she got that B+ in 10th grade? My father's response was dismissive. She'll get over it. It's just a computer. Tyler's voice joined in, not sounding remotely terrible. She's probably just using this as an excuse because she wasn't going to finish on time anyway. They laughed, the sound cutting through me like glass. Without announcing my departure, I slipped out the front door and into the cool spring evening. The drive to Rachel's apartment was a blur. My mind raced with calculations, how many hours of work had been lost, how much time I had left before the deadline, whether I could possibly recreate the missing sections from memory. The numbers weren't adding up to anything but failure. When I arrived, Rachel was waiting at the door of her small but tidy apartment. Without a word, she pulled me into a hug, the first real comfort I'd received since the incident. I made up the couch, she said, leading me inside. And there's tea. Or wine. Or both. Whatever you need. I collapsed onto her couch, the emotional and physical exhaustion finally catching up to me. I don't even know where to start fixing this. Rachel sat beside me. First things first. Have you emailed your advisor? I shook my head. The thought hadn't even occurred to me in the chaos. Do that now, she urged gently. Professor Martinez should know what happened. She might be able to give you an extension. I composed the email on Rachel's tablet, my fingers still trembling slightly as I explained the situation. I attached photos of the destroyed laptop as evidence, then hit send before I could overthink it. What if she thinks I'm making excuses? I whispered. The insecurity instilled by years of family dismissal surfacing despite myself. She won't, Rachel assured me. And if anyone can help salvage the situation, it's her. We stayed up late into the night, Rachel helping me catalog exactly what had been lost and what might be recoverable. The most recent version of my algorithm, the one I'd optimized after receiving feedback from another professor, was only on the damaged laptop. The conclusion section, which tied all my research together, was similarly recent work. So, worst case scenario, you've lost about 72 hours of work? Rachel clarified, making notes. At least, I confirmed. The number sounding both small and insurmountable. But it was the most critical 72 hours, the final refinements that made everything work together. My phone buzzed with texts from my mother. Where did you go? You're being very rude leaving without saying goodbye. Tyler feels bad. You should come home so you two can make up. I turned off my phone without responding. Sleep was fitful that night, my dreams filled with smashing sounds and mocking laughter. I woke before dawn, my mind immediately racing with the enormity of what lay ahead. As Rachel's apartment filled with early morning light, I sat at her kitchen table with a fresh notebook, meticulously mapping out a recovery plan. By 7 a.m., I had an email from Professor Martinez. Amber, I'm appalled by what happened. Come to my office at 9 a.m. We'll figure this out together. Don't lose hope. For the first time since Tyler had destroyed my laptop, I felt a tiny flicker of possibility. I wasn't alone in this after all. As I showered and prepared to meet Professor Martinez, another realization formed, crystal clear and surprisingly liberating. My family had shown me exactly who they were and how little they valued me. There was a strange power in finally having absolute confirmation of what I'd suspected for years. I looked at my reflection again, no longer seeing just devastation or even determination. I saw someone who had nothing left to lose, and that made me dangerous in a way Tyler and my parents couldn't possibly anticipate. Professor Diana Martinez's office had always been a sanctuary, walls lined with books, desk covered in organized stacks of research papers, the faint scent of coffee and mint tea in the air. But today, as I sat across from her explaining what had happened, it felt like the only safe place in my collapsing world. I showed her the bag containing my shattered laptop. Her expression darkened as she examined the damage. This wasn't an accident, she stated flatly. The damage is too extensive. My brother did it deliberately, I confirmed. My voice steadier than I expected. My parents think I'm overreacting. Professor Martinez removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. Amber, I want to be clear. This is not an overreaction. What happened was a deliberate act of sabotage, and it's completely unacceptable. Her validation was like oxygen. For the first time since the incident, I could breathe. The question now, she continued, practical as always, is how we move forward. You have 6 days until the submission deadline. Let's assess what we can salvage. She picked up her phone and called the computer science department's IT specialist, explaining the situation in brief, urgent terms. Within an hour, Raj from IT was carefully extracting the hard drive from my mangled laptop. I'll do my best, he promised, but I can't guarantee anything. This took quite a beating. While Raj worked, Professor Martinez outlined our contingency plan. I'm giving you 24/7 access to the Advanced Algorithms Lab, she said, handing me a special access card. It has our most powerful workstations. I've already emailed the department head explaining the situation. You'll have whatever resources you need. What if I can't recreate everything in time? I asked. The question that had been haunting me since last night. Then we'll request an emergency extension, she replied firmly. But let's cross that bridge only if we need to. First, let's see what Raj can recover. By afternoon, we had our answer. Raj had managed to salvage about 80% of my files. But the most recent versions of several critical sections were corrupted beyond recovery. It's better than nothing, I said, trying to sound optimistic as I stared at the list of recovered and lost files. Much better, Professor Martinez agreed. Now, let's make a strict timeline for reconstructing the lost work. Together, we mapped out an intensive schedule, 16-hour workdays in the lab, focusing first on rebuilding the optimized algorithm, then reconstructing the conclusion section. She offered to review sections as I completed them, providing real-time feedback to expedite the process. I can't thank you enough, I told her as we finalized the plan. Don't thank me yet. She replied with a determined smile. Thank me when we submit this thesis on time and you graduate with honors. As I settled into the lab that evening, preparing for my first all-night work session, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. After a moment's hesitation, I answered, Amber? Where are you? We're worried sick. Her voice carried no actual concern, just annoyance. I'm at the university, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I'm staying with a friend. This is ridiculous, she huffed. Running away doesn't solve anything. Tyler feels terrible about the accident. It wasn't an accident, I interrupted, surprised by my own calm. He deliberately destroyed my property and potentially my academic career. And neither of you cared. That's not true. We offered to help you buy a new computer after spring break. My thesis is due in 6 days, Mom. After spring break would be too late. There was a pause. Well, surely they'll give you an extension under the circumstances. The circumstances where my brother maliciously destroyed my work and my parents laughed about it? The words hung in the air between us. You're twisting what happened, she said defensively. Tyler made a mistake. We all make mistakes. A mistake is accidental. What Tyler did was deliberate, and your response showed me exactly where I stand in this family. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done seeking approval that's never going to come. I have work to do now. Amber, I'll let you know when I'm coming to get the rest of my things. I ended the call before she could respond, then turned off my phone completely. For the next 3 days, I existed in a world defined by code, algorithms, and determination. I slept on a cot in the lab's break room, showered in the gym facilities, and subsisted on vending machine snacks and delivery food. Rachel brought me fresh clothes and moral support. Professor Martinez checked in regularly, reviewing my progress and providing crucial guidance. On day 4, I received an unexpected visitor. Rachel's cousin, Marcus, appeared at the lab with a takeout bag from my favorite Thai restaurant. Rachel told me what happened, he explained. I work at Tech Fusion downtown. We specialize in data recovery and system security. I thought maybe I could help. Marcus spent his entire lunch break examining my code and offering suggestions for optimizing the reconstruction process. Before leaving, he handed me his card. When you're done with this thesis, give me a call. We're always looking for algorithm specialists. And we'd never smash your laptop. His offer was the first tangible sign that there might be life, even a career, waiting for me beyond this crisis. That same afternoon, I received another surprise. 3 classmates from my algorithm design seminar arrived at the lab with coffee and determination. Professor Martinez mentioned you could use some help, explained Eliza, the most brilliant coder in our cohort. We've all been there with thesis disasters, though maybe not quite so dramatically. For the next 8 hours, my classmates helped me troubleshoot code, test implementations, and even reconstruct some of the documentation I'd lost. Their willingness to give up their own spring break time to help me was humbling and empowering. Meanwhile, I was researching my legal options. A quick consultation with the university's legal aid office confirmed what I suspected. I had grounds for a small claims court case against Tyler for the destruction of my property and the resulting damages. The laptop itself is only worth about $1,200, the law student volunteer explained. But you could potentially claim additional damages for the lost work time and professional opportunities if you can document them. I began keeping meticulous records, hours spent reconstructing lost work, emails with Professor Martinez documenting the incident, photos of the damaged laptop. Even a statement from Raj in IT confirming the deliberate nature of the damage. By day 5, I had successfully reconstructed my algorithm and was making significant progress on the conclusion section. Professor Martinez reviewed my work with increasing optimism. This is actually more elegant than your previous version, she noted, reviewing my recoded algorithm. Sometimes a fresh start forces us to see things more clearly. I worked through the night, fueled by determination and the support network I'd never realized I had until my family's support had been conclusively withdrawn. By dawn on the day before my deadline, I was running the final tests on my algorithm, confirming that the outputs matched my research predictions. as the morning sun filtered through the lab windows. I sat back in my chair and realized I had done it. Against all odds, with the help of people who actually valued my work and potential, I had reconstructed my thesis. It wasn't identical to the original. In some ways, it was better, more focused, more precisely argued. I had one day left to format, proofread, and prepare for submission. And then I had one more task to complete, confronting the family who thought they had ended my academic career with one cruel act of destruction. They had no idea what I was capable of. But they were about to find out. 1 week after Tyler smashed my laptop, I submitted my completed thesis, all 157 pages of meticulously documented research, code, and analysis. Professor Martinez stood beside me as I uploaded the final PDF to the department portal, both of us watching the confirmation message appear on screen with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "You did it," she said simply, but her proud smile conveyed volumes more. "We did it," I corrected her. "I couldn't have done this without your help." After nearly a week of minimal sleep and maximum stress, I should have felt only relief. But as the immediate academic crisis resolved, another emotion surfaced, a cold, clear anger that demanded resolution. "What will you do now?" Professor Martinez asked as we left the department building. "I'm going to get the rest of my belongings from my parents' house," I replied. "And I'm going to file a police report and small claims court case against my brother." She nodded, unsurprised. "Do you want someone to go with you?" I considered her offer. "No, but thank you. This is something I need to do myself." The drive to my parents' house felt surreal, the familiar streets leading to a place that no longer felt like home. I timed my arrival for early afternoon, knowing both my parents would likely be home, but Tyler might be at work. I needed to retrieve my belongings with minimal drama before confronting Tyler directly. My mother answered the door, her expression shifting rapidly from surprise to practiced maternal concern. "Amber, thank goodness you're home. We've been so worried." I kept my response neutral. "I'm not staying. I came to get the rest of my things." Her face fell. "Don't be ridiculous. Of course you're staying. This dramatic exit has gone on long enough." I stepped past her into the house, noticing how small and ordinary it suddenly seemed. "My thesis is submitted. No thanks to anyone here." My father emerged from the living room, newspaper in hand. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence." "I'm just here for my things," I repeated, heading toward the stairs. "Amber," my mother called after me, "you need to talk to Tyler. He feels terrible about what happened." I paused on the stairs. "Is he here?" "No. He's at your uncle's job site. But he'll be home for dinner. We can all sit down and work through this as a family." The idea that this could be resolved over a family dinner was so absurd I almost laughed. "That won't be necessary." In my bedroom, everything remained exactly as I'd left it, including the scattered pieces of laptop that no one had bothered to clean up. I took photos of the scene, documenting the damage once more for my case, then began methodically packing my remaining belongings into boxes and bags I'd brought. As I worked, I heard my parents conferring in hushed, concerned tones downstairs. I ignored them, focusing on the task at hand. I was nearly finished when I heard the front door open and Tyler's voice carrying up the stairs. "Is that Amber's car outside? She's back?" My mother's response was too quiet to hear, but moments later, heavy footsteps ascended the stairs. Tyler appeared in my doorway, his expression a carefully constructed mask of contrition. "Hey," he said, leaning against the doorframe in the exact spot he'd stood when he'd destroyed my laptop a week ago. "Look, I'm really sorry about what happened. I was drunk and stupid." I continued packing, not bothering to look at him. "Yes, you were. So we're good, right?" he pressed. "Water under the bridge?" Now I did look up, meeting his eyes directly. "No, Tyler. We're not good. You deliberately destroyed my property and potentially my academic career. That's not something I can just forgive and forget.
His fake remorse slipped, revealing the familiar contempt beneath.
Jesus, you're still on about that? It was just a laptop. Mom and Dad said they'd help you get a new one. It wasn't just a laptop.
It was my thesis. My research, my future.
I zipped my final bag closed. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? What's that supposed to mean? It means not everyone drops out after one semester because things get too challenging.
The words were cruel, but I was past caring about his feelings.
Tyler's face darkened. You think you're so much better than me with your fancy degree and your complicated computer programs. Newsflash, nobody cares about that stuff in the real world.
The real world values my work quite a lot.
Actually, I replied, thinking of Marcus's job offer and Professor Martinez's connections in the industry. Which is why I'm filing a police report for destruction of property and taking you to small claims court for the damages. His mocking expression shifted to shock.
You're what?
You heard me. I pulled a folded document from my bag and held it out to him. This is your copy of the small claims court filing.
You've been served.
He stared at the paper without taking it. This is a joke, right? You're suing me? Your own brother. The brother who deliberately destroyed thousands of dollars of my property while our parents laughed? Yes, I am. I placed the document on the bed when he refused to take it. The hearing is in 3 weeks. I suggest you start saving up.
Footsteps pounded up the stairs as my parents, clearly having overheard, rushed to Tyler's defense.
Amber, have you lost your mind? My father demanded, his face flushed with anger. You can't see your own brother. Actually, I can and I am. I shouldered my bag and picked up the box containing my awards and mementos. I've also filed a police report for the malicious destruction of property. My mother's hand flew to her chest in theatrical shock. A police report? Tyler could lose his job if he has a record. He should have thought of that before destroying my laptop. I replied calmly. Actions have consequences.
This is insane, my father sputtered.
You're tearing this family apart over a computer accident.
It wasn't an accident, I corrected him.
My voice steady. Tyler admitted it himself just now. He was drunk and stupid.
And you both enabled and excused his behavior, as you always have.
I think you're having some kind of breakdown.
My mother said, her voice taking on the patronizing tone she used when she thought I was being irrational.
Maybe the stress of school has become too much for you.
I finished my thesis. I informed her.
I submitted it today, no thanks to any of you. I did it despite Tyler's best efforts to sabotage me and despite your complete lack of support. Tyler,
who had been silently seething, suddenly found his voice again.
If you go through with this lawsuit, don't expect any more help with your tuition. Dad was going to help with your final semester, but I guess you don't need family support anymore. It was meant to be a threat, a way to bring me back in line. But I just smiled. I've already applied for emergency completion funding through the department. Professor Martinez has assured me it will be approved. I don't need your conditional support anymore. My father's face reddened further. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? I interrupted, the question genuine.
My scholarships paid for most of my education.
I worked part-time throughout college to cover expenses. You've never shown any interest in my research or career goals. So please, tell me what I should be so grateful for.
The question hung in the air, unanswered. My mother's expression shifted from concern to hurt, my father's from anger to confusion. Only Tyler remained unchanged, angry and entitled to the end.
You know what? Go ahead with your stupid lawsuit, he spat. No one forced you to leave your precious laptop where it could get broken. It was in my bedroom, Tyler. You came in specifically to break it?
You can't prove that, he sneered.
Actually, I can.
Your friends Jake and Brandon were witnesses.
I've already spoken to Jake. Who's willing to testify about what really happened? This was a bluff. I hadn't actually contacted Jake, but the flash of panic on Tyler's face told me it had hit home.
I picked up my boxes and walked past my stunned family, down the stairs and out to my car. As I loaded the last of my belongings, my mother followed me outside. "Amber, please," she pleaded, tears now streaming down her face. "We're your family. You can't do this." I paused, one hand on my car door. A family supports each other. A family values each member's dreams and achievements. That's not what happens in this house. "We love you," she insisted. "Maybe you do, in your way," I acknowledged. "But you don't respect me or what matters to me. And I can't keep pretending that's enough." I got into my car and drove away, watching my childhood home recede in the rearview mirror. There was grief in leaving, in acknowledging the family I had wished for versus the reality of the family I had. But there was also a profound sense of liberation, of finally standing up for myself and my worth. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I threw myself into preparing for my thesis defense, working closely with Professor Martinez to anticipate questions and challenges from the committee. I moved from Rachel's couch to a small studio apartment near campus, furnished with second-hand basics and my salvaged belongings. Tyler didn't show up for the small claims court hearing. My parents did. Sitting silently at the back of the courtroom as I presented my evidence, photos of the damaged laptop, the IT department's assessment of the deliberate nature of the damage, documentation of the hours spent reconstructing lost work, and statements from Professor Martinez about the academic impact. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering Tyler to pay $3,800, the cost of a new laptop plus damages for the lost work time and professional opportunities. It was a clear victory. But seeing my parents leave the courtroom without speaking to me left a hollow feeling beneath the vindication. That evening, as I prepared for my thesis defense scheduled for the following week, I received an unexpected email from Tech Innovate, the research firm that had expressed interest in my work before the laptop incident. "We've received a preliminary copy of your thesis from Professor Martinez. With your permission," she noted. "We're impressed with your innovative approach and resilience. Our offer to review your work for potential employment still stands. Please contact us after your defense." It was the final confirmation that standing up for myself and my work had been the right choice, regardless of the family ties that had been damaged in the process. I had lost my illusory family support, but I had gained something far more valuable: genuine recognition for my work and the beginning of a professional future built on my own merit. As I closed my laptop, the new one purchased with the court settlement, I realized that Tyler's destructive act had ultimately failed. He had broken my computer, but he hadn't broken me. In fact, he had inadvertently pushed me to discover just how strong I really was. The morning of my thesis defense arrived crisp and clear, sunshine streaming through the windows of the computer science department's main conference room. I stood at the podium, facing the 5 professors who would determine whether my work met the standards for a master's degree in advanced computational algorithms. Professor Martinez sat among them, a subtle, encouraging smile on her face as I began my presentation. For the next 45 minutes, I explained my research, demonstrated my algorithm's effectiveness with healthcare data, and fielded increasingly complex questions from the committee. The weeks of preparation paid off. I answered confidently. My understanding of the material deepened by having had to reconstruct portions from memory. When the committee chair finally said, "Congratulations, Ms. Harrison. Your thesis has been accepted with distinction," I felt a wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm my professional composure. It wasn't just academic validation. It was proof that I had overcome every obstacle thrown in my path, including those from the people who should have supported me most. Professor Martinez approached me after the other faculty members had filed out. "That was one of the strongest defenses I've seen in years," she said, her usual reserve giving way to genuine pride. "You didn't just survive this ordeal, Amber. You thrived because of it. I couldn't have done it without your help," I told her, my gratitude impossible to fully express. I opened doors. She corrected me. You walked through them on your own merit. The following weekend was graduation. I stood in line with my fellow master's candidates. The weight of the ceremonial hood and the knowledge of what it had taken to earn it making me stand taller. As I scanned the audience, I wasn't surprised to see no sign of my parents or Tyler. What did surprise me was how little their absence stung compared to the pride I felt in myself. Rachel sat in the third row, cheering loudly when my name was called. Beside her was Marcus, who had offered me not just a job at TechFusion, but a genuine friendship based on mutual respect for each other's abilities. In the faculty section, Professor Martinez watched with dignified approval as I crossed the stage to receive my diploma. They were my chosen family now, people who valued achievement and integrity, who understood the worth of intellectual labor, who offered support without demanding submission in return. The settlement money from the small claims case arrived 3 days after graduation, a check for $3,800 that represented not just compensation for my damaged property, but an acknowledgement that what had happened was wrong. Tyler had initially refused to pay, but the court had ways of enforcing its judgments. According to a terse email from my father, they had ultimately lent Tyler the money to put this ridiculous situation behind us. I used part of the money to buy a state-of-the-art laptop for my new position at TechFusion, where I would be working on algorithmic solutions for healthcare data analysis, a direct extension of my thesis research. The rest I put toward a security deposit on a better apartment closer to the company's offices. 2 weeks into my new job, my mother called. It was our first contact since the court hearing. "We miss you," she said, her voice small and uncertain. "Your father and I have been talking, and we realize we may have mishandled things." It was as close to an apology as I was likely to get. "I appreciate that," I replied carefully. "Tyler's having a hard time," she continued. "He lost his job at your uncle's company, and he's having trouble finding new work with this legal issue on his record. The police report I'd filed had resulted in a misdemeanor charge for destruction of property. Tyler had received probation and a fine, but the record would follow him for years." "That's unfortunate," I said, not offering the sympathy she clearly expected. "We thought maybe you could talk to him," she suggested tentatively. "Help him understand how to move forward. You've always been so good at planning and organizing." I almost laughed at the irony, now that Tyler was struggling. My previously dismissed skills were suddenly valuable. "Mom, I can't fix this for him. Tyler made his choices, just like I made mine." "But we're family," she insisted, falling back on the one argument she thought would always work. "Being family doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior," I told her. "It means holding each other accountable and respecting each other's boundaries. I've learned that the hard way." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "Will we ever see you again?" The question held genuine pain, and despite everything, I felt a twinge of empathy. They were my parents, flawed and frustrating as they were. "I'm not cutting you out of my life," I assured her. "But our relationship needs to change. I need you to recognize that my work and my goals matter. I need you to understand that what Tyler did was seriously wrong, not just a silly mistake." "I'm trying to understand," she said quietly. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a beginning, a crack in the wall of denial they had built around their perceptions of our family dynamics. Over the following months, I established careful boundaries. I visited my parents occasionally for short, structured interactions, Sunday lunch, or a brief coffee. Tyler and I maintained distance. Our relationship perhaps permanently altered by what had happened. He eventually found new employment through a friend's connection, his natural charisma helping him bounce back despite the setback. My career at TechFusion flourished. 6 months after graduation, my algorithm was implemented in a pilot program at 3 regional hospitals, helping identify early markers for cardiovascular disease. The work I had fought so hard to complete was making a real difference in people's lives. 1 year after the laptop incident, I received an unexpected email from Jake, Tyler's friend who had witnessed the destruction. I've been thinking about what happened last year, and I wanted to say I'm sorry I didn't step in or speak up. I knew it was wrong, but I was too chicken to say anything. Seeing how you stood up for yourself afterward made me realize I need to be better about that too. His message was a poignant reminder that our actions ripple outward in ways we can't always predict. My stand for self-respect had apparently prompted Jake to examine his own behavior as a bystander. The most profound change, however, was within myself. I no longer measured my worth by my family's approval or recognition. I had built a life centered on my own values and surrounded by people who shared them. The painful lesson of the laptop incident had ultimately freed me from the exhausting pursuit of validation from those who couldn't or wouldn't provide it. One evening, as Marcus and I worked late on a particularly challenging project, he asked me, "Do you ever regret taking your brother to court? It must have been hard, going against your family like that." I considered the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary," I finally answered. "But I don't regret standing up for myself. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same." "Well, for what it's worth," he said, "I think you made the right choice. Your work is too important to be dismissed or destroyed." His simple acknowledgement of my work's value, something my family had never managed to express, underscored how far I had come. The truth is, when Tyler smashed my laptop that day, he broke much more than just a machine. He shattered my illusions about my family and my place within it. But from those broken pieces, I had built something stronger. A life defined not by others' expectations, but by my own determination and integrity. Some people never learn to value what you offer until you stop offering it. Others recognize your worth from the beginning and help you see it in yourself. The wisdom lies in knowing the difference and in understanding that sometimes the family you choose can nurture you in ways the family you were born into never could. So, if you're facing your own version of a smashed laptop, a moment when someone tries to destroy what matters to you, remember that it's not the setback that defines you, but how you respond to it. Stand up, speak your truth, and rebuild. The life you construct from the broken pieces might be more beautiful and authentic than you ever imagined possible. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who didn't support your dreams? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more about overcoming family challenges and building the life you deserve. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, your worth isn't determined by those who can't see it.